Think for a moment about the people we elevate to legend status, the icons whose images adorn our screens, their smiles unwavering, their composure seemingly unbreakable. They embody an ideal, a vision of success and serenity that feels almost otherworldly. For decades, one name, one face stood as the very epitome of this unblemished American dream: Tom Selleck. With that effortlessly charming grin, the distinctive mustache, and a cool, confident gaze, he was more than just an actor. He was a cultural touchstone. From the sun-drenched beaches of Hawaii as Magnum P.I. to the sophisticated allure of his film roles, Selleck projected an image of robust masculinity, unwavering integrity, and an enviable, idyllic life. He was the quintessential leading man, a figure synonymous with stability, traditional values, and a kind of quiet, understated triumph. He exuded an aura of having everything perfectly under control, navigating the choppy waters of Hollywood with a grace that seemed almost divinely bestowed. Yet, what if that image, so meticulously crafted and widely adored, was merely a shimmering veneer? What if, beneath the polished surface of that iconic persona, lay a labyrinth of unspoken struggles, profound personal heartbreaks, and public controversies that threatened to unravel the very fabric of his carefully constructed world? This isn't just another tale of celebrity scandal. This is the deeply human, intensely complicated saga of a man who, despite reaching the zenith of fame and fortune, found himself teetering on the precipice, facing the very real possibility of losing it all. By 2025, a date that now hangs heavy with foreboding, Tom Selleck himself would stand before a live television audience, his once impenetrable facade cracked, admitting the unthinkable. He might lose everything. The seeds of this dramatic unraveling were sown long before the public truly caught wind of the storm brewing beneath the calm exterior. Back in 1987, at the height of his Magnum P.I. fame, Selleck embarked on a wedding that would set a telling precedent for his life's hidden complexities. It was a clandestine affair, executed with a secrecy that bordered on the theatrical. He married under a fake name, his chosen minister blissfully unaware he was officiating a ceremony for one of the world's biggest stars. The story itself became legendary, not just for its secrecy, but for its almost comedic chaos. A forgotten marriage license, a desperate scramble before dinner to legitimize their vows. It was a private moment, fiercely guarded, yet riddled with a frantic energy that, in retrospect, mirrored the hidden tensions that would define much of his life to come. This initial glimpse into his fervent desire for privacy, even amidst the greatest joys, hinted at a deeper narrative of a man constantly trying to shield his personal world from the relentless glare of the public eye. But that secret wedding, charmingly chaotic as it was merely the prologue to a much grander, more tumultuous drama. It was the first ripple in a pond that would eventually be roiled by a succession of seismic events, each one chipping away at the carefully constructed image of perfection. From the whispers of a water theft scandal that erupted into a full-blown public and legal battle, tarnishing his reputation and challenging his integrity, to the devastating, unthinkable tragedy of a helicopter death on a film set, an incident that cast a long, dark shadow over his career and soul. Then came the profoundly personal agony of witnessing his own son spiral into the abyss of addiction, a battle fought not on Hollywood soundstages, but in the quiet, desperate corners of a family's heart. These were not mere tabloid headlines. These were life-altering crucibles that tested the very limits of his resilience, his character, and his ability to hold on to the life he had so meticulously built. This is the story of how a man who for so long epitomized the American dream of success, family, and unwavering confidence found himself confronting the fragility of it all. It's a narrative far deeper than surface-level celebrity gossip, delving into the profound human experience of navigating unforeseen calamities, the crushing weight of public scrutiny, and the agonizing vulnerability of personal sorrow. We will meticulously peel back the layers of fame and fortune to reveal the man beneath the myth, exploring the very real cost of living in the spotlight and the harrowing journey that led Tom Selleck to that fateful moment in 2025, where the illusion of perfection finally shattered, revealing a future hanging precariously in the balance. Prepare to witness the untold saga of a Hollywood legend whose seemingly perfect life was, in truth, a testament to the brutal, beautiful, and often heartbreaking realities of the human condition. And so, as the incandescent glow of the 1980s continued to burn brightly around him, radiating from every screen and billboard, Tom Selleck found himself at a crossroads where the intensely public intersected with the profoundly personal. He was, by 1987, more than just an actor. He was an icon, a household name, synonymous with rugged charm, effortless cool, and that unmistakable mustache. Magnum P.I. wasn't just a TV show, it was a global phenomenon, and Tom Selleck was its undisputed king, his face adorning magazines, merchandise, and the fervent dreams of millions. But behind the dazzling smile and the easygoing demeanor lay a man fiercely protective of his private world, a man who understood the voracious appetite of fame and the quiet sacrifices it demanded. It was this deeply ingrained need for personal sanctuary that would lead to one of the most extraordinary and almost comically clandestine weddings in Hollywood history. On a crisp, unassuming day, August 7, 1987, in the serene, idyllic setting of Lake Tahoe, Nevada, Tom Selleck stood poised to marry the love of his life, Jillie Mack. But this was no ordinary celebrity wedding. There were no flashing paparazzi bulbs, no battalions of security guards, no exclusive magazine spreads meticulously planned months in advance. Instead, there was a meticulous, almost military-grade operation designed for one purpose: absolute secrecy. Selleck, ever the strategist, had orchestrated an event so far removed from the Hollywood circus that it bordered on the surreal. The cornerstone of this elaborate deception, he married under a fake name. Imagine the sheer audacity, the meticulous planning required to pull off such a feat. It wasn't merely a casual alias, it was a deliberate, calculated move to erect an impenetrable shield around one of the most significant moments of his life. For a man whose every move was analyzed, every relationship speculated upon, every public appearance dissected, this was his ultimate act of defiance against the relentless intrusion of celebrity culture. He wasn't just seeking privacy, he was demanding normalcy, craving an intimacy that only anonymity could truly provide. He wanted this momentous occasion to be about Tom and Jillie, not Tom Selleck, the international superstar. The name he chose, carefully selected to avoid any recognition, to blend seamlessly into the background, served as a symbolic barrier, a testament to his unwavering commitment to shielding his personal happiness from the often corrosive glare of public scrutiny. He wasn't just seeking privacy, he was demanding normalcy, craving an intimacy that only anonymity could truly provide. He wanted this momentous occasion to be about Tom and Jillie, not Tom Selleck, the international superstar. The name he chose, carefully selected to avoid any recognition, to blend seamlessly into the background, served as a symbolic barrier, a testament to his unwavering commitment to shielding his personal happiness from the often corrosive glare of public scrutiny. It spoke volumes about his priorities, revealing a man who valued genuine connection and the sanctity of his burgeoning family life far above the transient spectacle of celebrity. The chosen venue was a small, unassuming chapel, far removed from the glitz and glamour of Hollywood. nestled amidst the tranquil beauty of Lake Tahoe. It was a deliberate choice, reflecting Selleck's desire for a grounded, authentic ceremony, devoid of the usual fanfare. And perhaps the most remarkable detail of this already astounding story was the minister himself. He had absolutely no idea he was officiating the wedding of one of the world's most recognizable faces. Picture the scene. A humble clergyman, accustomed to guiding local couples through their vows, standing before a man who, just weeks prior, might have been gracing the cover of People magazine. The absence of recognition wasn't an oversight, it was a testament to the impeccable execution of Selleck's plan. His inner circle, an incredibly tight and trusted few, had maintained a formidable wall of silence. No leaks, no whispered rumors, just a quiet commitment to preserving the couple's special day. The minister likely saw a handsome, earnest couple, perhaps a little older than average, but otherwise indistinguishable from any other pair ready to embark on their shared journey. There were no grand pronouncements, no special favors requested, no hints dropped about the immense fame of the groom. It was a pure, unadorned ceremony, stripped of all the external pressures that typically accompany a celebrity union. This unawareness allowed for a truly genuine atmosphere, one where the focus remained solely on the vows exchanged, the promises made, and the profound love shared between Tom and Jill. It was an almost utopian vision of a celebrity wedding, free from the baggage of fame, existing solely as a private, heartfelt commitment between two people. But even the most meticulously planned secret operations can encounter unforeseen turbulence, a sudden human error that threatens to unravel everything. And for Tom Selleck and Jilly Mack, that moment arrived with a jolt of panic just after the I-do's had been exchanged, the rings slipped onto fingers, and a wave of blissful relief had started to wash over the intimate gathering. In their elaborate efforts to maintain secrecy, amidst the careful orchestration of fake names and unsuspecting ministers, one crucial, non-negotiable detail had been utterly, spectacularly forgotten. Imagine the collective gasp, the sudden hush that would have fallen over the small chapel. The ceremony was complete, the commitment made, but without that vital piece of paper, the union wasn't legally binding. The carefully constructed facade of normalcy, the quiet triumphs over the relentless prying eyes of the world, suddenly teetered on the brink of collapse due to a simple oversight. What followed was a frantic scramble, a desperate, silent race against the clock. The reception, a small, intimate dinner, was already planned, likely just hours away. There was no time for leisurely solutions, no opportunity to calmly reschedule. Someone, perhaps a trusted best man, or a quick-thinking assistant, or even Selleck himself, consumed by a mixture of mortification and urgency, had to make a lightning-fast dash. The details of that desperate retrieval are shrouded in the same secrecy that defined the wedding itself, but one can easily picture the scene: hushed voices, urgent whispers, a rapid-fire assessments of the situation, and then a hurried departure. A car speeding back along the scenic Lake Tahoe roads, the driver keenly aware of the precious cargo, or rather the missing cargo, and the immense stakes involved. Every second would have felt like an eternity, every turn of the wheel charged with the fear of failure. It was a quintessential movie moment, but one playing out in the real lives of two people, desperate to protect their privacy. The relief when that crucial document was finally secured and returned must have been palpable, an almost physical weight lifting from everyone's shoulders. This last-minute hurdle, ironically, only served to humanize the larger-than-life figure of Tom Selleck, reminding everyone that even global superstars are susceptible to the same pre-wedding jitters and logistical blunders as anyone else. It was a shared moment of relatable chaos, a brief crack in the carefully maintained wall of celebrity, revealing the universal anxieties that accompany such a significant life event. This extraordinary tale of a wedding under a veil of secrecy offers profound insights into Tom Selleck's character and his priorities at the absolute zenith of his career. By 1987, his fame wasn't just substantial, it was gargantuan. Magnum P.I. had cemented his status as a bona fide sex symbol and a respected actor, making him a perpetual target for tabloids and paparazzi. Every detail of his personal life, from his previous marriage to Jacqueline Ray to his romantic entanglements, was fair game for public consumption. Selleck, however, was fundamentally an old-school gentleman, a man whose values were deeply rooted in family, privacy, and an almost anachronistic sense of normalcy. He saw fame not as an entitlement to endless public adoration, but as a job, a craft he respected, which should not dictate the sanctity of his private existence. His fervent desire for privacy wasn't about being aloof or ungrateful, it was about self-preservation, about protecting the genuine intimacy and connection he cherished with Jill. He understood that the glare of constant scrutiny could distort relationships, erode trust, and strip away the very essence of what makes a personal bond sacred. The decision to marry under a fake name, to deliberately exclude the media, and to seek out a genuinely unaware officiant was a powerful declaration of independence. It was his way of asserting control over a life that was constantly being pulled and prodded by external forces. He wasn't chasing headlines or seeking to monetize his wedding. He was simply trying to marry the woman he loved, in peace, surrounded only by those who truly mattered. This act of deliberate obscurity spoke volumes about his grounding. He wasn't swayed by the glitz or the opportunities for public spectacle that most celebrities would readily embrace. Instead, he prioritized the quiet dignity of his personal life, the authentic moment of commitment, over any potential public relations coup. This approach set a clear precedent for his marriage to Jilly, establishing from the outset that their relationship would be built on a foundation of fierce protection from the outside world. It was an early demonstration of a man who would, throughout his life, consistently choose the quiet strength of family and personal integrity over the fleeting allure of endless fame. This wedding wasn't just an anomaly, it was a deeply personal mission, a successful campaign to reclaim a piece of normalcy and intimacy in a world that constantly threatened to devour it whole. Little did he know, this hard-won privacy, so diligently protected on his wedding day, would face even more formidable challenges in the years to come, threatening to unravel the very fabric of the life he so carefully constructed. The golden hues of Southern California, usually a symbol of endless summer and prosperity, had in the mid-2010s begun to take on a parched, desperate quality. The relentless drought that gripped the state was not merely an inconvenience, it was an existential threat, transforming lush landscapes into dust bowls, emptying reservoirs, and turning rivers into trickles. Every drop of water became a precious, guarded commodity, and residents across the state were urged, then mandated, to make drastic cuts to their water consumption. Lawns turned brown, car washes were curtailed, and the very act of watering a garden became an act of conscious sacrifice or, for some, quiet defiance. This was the volatile backdrop against which a scandal would erupt, pulling one of Hollywood's most beloved and seemingly wholesome figures into a very public and deeply damaging controversy. Tom Selleck, known for his iconic roles as the charming, mustachioed private investigator Thomas Magnum and the rugged, upright cowboy, had carefully cultivated an image of integrity and down-to-earth appeal. His sprawling 63-acre ranch in Ventura County, nestled in the Hidden Valley community, was not just a home, it was a sanctuary, a place where he could escape the glare of Hollywood and embrace a quieter, more private life, tending to avocado trees and living the pastoral dream. But this very dream, requiring significant irrigation in a drought-stricken region, would become the epicenter of a storm that threatened to tarnish his meticulously built reputation. The allegations were stark and shocking. For 2 years, from 2013 to 2015, Tom Selleck was accused of illegally diverting water from a public fire hydrant, effectively stealing a communal resource during a time of extreme scarcity. The Calaguayas Municipal Water District, the public agency responsible for providing water to various communities in Ventura County, including Hidden Valley, was the aggrieved party. This was not a minor infraction, a homeowner forgetting to turn off a tap. This was, as the water district alleged, a systematic and deliberate siphoning of millions of gallons of water directly from a hydrant connected to their system, transported by truck to Selleck's ranch. The details that emerged from the subsequent legal filings painted a picture of a calculated operation. It wasn't a one-time event. The water district had grown suspicious, noticing an unusual pattern of high-volume water usage in the area that didn't align with their official records or allocated permits. They dispatched a private investigator, a common tactic for identifying water theft and other illicit diversions. This investigator, paid over $14,000, meticulously documented multiple instances where a tanker truck was observed filling up at a specific public hydrant in the district, then making repeated trips to Tom Selleck's property. The surveillance involved photographs, timestamps, and detailed logs, building an undeniable case. Imagine the scene. A clandestine operation unfolding under the searing California sun, a tanker truck making furtive trips, unknowingly under the watchful eye of an investigator, all to supply water to a celebrity's verdant estate while the rest of the state withered. When the Calaguayas Municipal Water District confronted Selleck, they initially attempted to resolve the issue amicably, sending a cease and desist letter to his ranch in November 2013. This letter demanded an immediate stop to the alleged water diversion. However, the district claimed that despite this formal warning, the illegal activity continued for nearly 2 more years. This alleged disregard for their directive significantly escalated the situation, forcing the water district's hand. They felt they had no choice but to pursue legal action, not just to recover the stolen water, but to send a clear message about the sanctity of public resources, especially during a crisis. The lawsuit, filed in Ventura County Superior Court in July 2015, sought not only financial restitution for the water taken, but also an injunction to prevent any further diversions. The suit highlighted the audacity of the alleged theft, emphasizing that the water district had spent nearly $22 million developing a pipeline to deliver imported water to the Hidden Valley area, precisely to ensure fair and legal distribution. To have water siphoned off illegally, they argued, undermined the entire system and disenfranchised every other paying customer. The legal battle quickly became a media spectacle, a vivid illustration of the rules for thee but not for me perception that often accompanies celebrity transgressions. The public outcry was swift and severe. In a state where residents were taking shorter showers, letting their lawns die, and even foregoing flushing toilets sometimes to conserve water, the idea of a wealthy celebrity allegedly stealing millions of gallons for his private ranch was infuriating. News headlines screamed, "Tom Selleck accused of water theft," "Magnum P.I. steals water during drought," and the narrative quickly solidified into one of hypocrisy and entitlement. His carefully constructed image, that of a genuine, principled man, began to crack under the intense scrutiny. How could the man who played honest, hardworking characters, the epitome of American values, be involved in such a scandal? It was a stark reminder of the often unforgiving relationship between public perception and private actions, especially for figures under the perpetual microscope of fame. For the Calaguayas Municipal Water District, this wasn't just about Tom Selleck, it was about upholding the law and protecting a vital public resource. They argued that their actions were necessary to deter others from similar misconduct and to ensure the equitable distribution of water. The legal arguments from their side were straightforward: illegal diversion, documented evidence, and a clear violation of regulations designed to manage a precious commodity. They had the surveillance, the ignored cease and desist letter, and the fundamental principle of public trust on their side. While Tom Selleck's direct legal defense wasn't publicly detailed in the same way as the accusations, the eventual settlement suggested a path of damage control rather than a prolonged fight. Typically, in such cases, the defense might argue a lack of direct knowledge, blaming a property manager or contractor, or perhaps asserting a misunderstanding of the regulations. However, the evidence collected by the private investigator was robust, making it difficult to completely disassociate Selleck's property from the alleged activity. The sheer volume of water involved also made any claim of a minor oversight highly implausible. The prudent move from a legal and public relations standpoint was to settle, to put the embarrassing incident behind him as quickly as possible. And settle he did. Just 2 weeks after the lawsuit was filed, Tom Selleck reached an agreement with the Caliquagas Municipal Water District. The terms of the settlement were significant. Selleck agreed to pay $160,000 to the water district. This sum was intended to cover the costs of the private investigator, the legal fees incurred by the district, and a portion of the value of the allegedly stolen water. While not an admission of guilt in the strictest sense, settlements often include clauses to avoid such admissions. The payment was a clear signal that the evidence against him was substantial enough to warrant a significant financial penalty. For a man of Selleck's wealth, $160,000 might not have been crippling, but it was certainly not insignificant, especially when factoring in his own legal costs and the immeasurable damage to his public image. The media's portrayal of the incident was relentless. Tabloids and legitimate news outlets alike jumped on the story. It had all the ingredients for a compelling narrative: a beloved celebrity, a serious environmental crisis, allegations of privilege and exploitation. The headlines, already sensational, were often accompanied with images of Selleck in his Magnum P.I. glory days, juxtaposed with the dry, cracked earth of California, creating a powerful visual commentary on the alleged hypocrisy. The story resonated deeply because it touched on themes of environmental responsibility, social equity, and the perceived abuses of power by the rich and famous. It fueled the common sentiment that while ordinary citizens bore the brunt of tough regulations, the elite often found ways around them. The long-term repercussions for Tom Selleck were multifaceted. Financially, beyond the settlement, there were the considerable legal fees for his defense team. More importantly, there was the enduring stain on his reputation. While his career continued and he remained a beloved figure for many, the water theft scandal became an indelible part of his public narrative. It chipped away at the wholesome, relatable image he had carefully cultivated over decades. For a man who had intentionally stepped back from the Hollywood limelight to lead a more private, grounded life, this public scandal was a deeply ironic and painful intrusion. It served as a stark reminder that even on a secluded ranch, away from the paparazzi, the actions of a public figure remain subject to scrutiny, especially when those actions impact shared resources and public trust. The incident forced Selleck, and perhaps other public figures, to confront the realities of environmental stewardship and the magnified ethical responsibilities that come with fame and wealth. It was a humbling experience that highlighted the profound challenges that can arise when a public figure's private actions are scrutinized through the unforgiving lens of media and public opinion. The drought eventually subsided, but the memory of the water theft scandal and its implications for Tom Selleck's legacy continued to ripple through the waters of his complex public life. It was a powerful, unwelcome lesson in the true cost of public trust, a lesson learned under the harsh, unyielding glare of the California sun. Yet, beneath the glossy veneer of success, even for a star as seemingly grounded as Tom Selleck, lay the unpredictable and often perilous reality of the entertainment industry. The cameras may capture moments of fictional drama, but sometimes real tragedy strikes with devastating force, leaving indelible scars that no amount of Hollywood magic can erase. One such shadow, deep and enduring, fell across a film set where Tom Selleck was a central figure, an event that ripped through the insulated bubble of production and exposed the stark vulnerability of those who bring cinematic dreams to life. A helicopter incident that ended in unimaginable sorrow. It was a day that began like countless others, under the bright, often unforgiving lights of a major film production. The air was thick with the usual blend of anticipation and organized chaos, the hum of generators, the low murmur of crew communications, the clatter of equipment being readied for the next ambitious shot. Tom Selleck, ever the consummate professional, was likely in character, perhaps discussing a scene with the director, his imposing presence a steady anchor amidst the swirling activity. The scene in question called for a complex aerial maneuver, a dynamic sequence involving a helicopter, a powerful symbol of high-stakes action and cinematic spectacle. Such shots are meticulously planned, rehearsed countless times, and executed by highly specialized teams. Every detail, from the flight path to the precise timing of the camera angles, is scrutinized to an obsessive degree. Yet, despite these exhaustive precautions, the inherent risks of working with heavy machinery, at height, and under immense pressure are always present, a silent, unseen specter hovering just beyond the frame. On that fateful day, the illusion of control shattered. The helicopter, a sleek marvel of engineering designed to dance gracefully for the cameras, faltered. Perhaps it was a sudden gust of wind, an unforeseen mechanical glitch, or a minuscule human miscalculation. The precise cause would later be the subject of grueling investigations, but in that moment, all that mattered was the horrifying reality unfolding before a stunned crew. The subtle shift in engine sound, the sudden, unnatural tilt, the terrifying descent that defied gravity's usual embrace. The screams, at first muffled by the roar of the rotors, quickly pierced the air as the massive machine plunged, a metal bird broken in mid-flight, crashing to the ground with a sickening thud and the splintering sound of tearing metal. The immediate aftermath was a visceral nightmare, a scene of absolute pandemonium that froze the blood of every witness. The organized set, moments before bustling with purpose, devolved into a tableau of utter chaos. Dust and debris billowed into the sky, mingling with the acrid smell of aviation fuel and burnt wiring. Silence, thick and heavy, descended for a terrifying second, punctuated only by the ringing in ears, before being violently shattered by the shouts of panic, the wails of grief, and the urgent cries for help. Crew members, many of whom had become a tight-knit family over weeks and months of working together, ran towards the wreckage, driven by an instinct to assist, to rescue, to deny the unfolding horror. Others, paralyzed by shock, could only stand and stare, their minds struggling to process the inconceivable. Emergency protocols, rehearsed for hypothetical situations, were suddenly thrust into terrifying, immediate action. Sirens began to wail in the distance, a grim promise of the somber procession of first responders about to arrive. For Tom Selleck, the impact was profound. As a leading man, he often carried a responsibility for the tone and morale of the set. To witness such a catastrophic event, to see a colleague's life extinguished in an instant on a project he was part of, was an emotional blow that would reverberate deeply. While the specifics of his immediate reaction are often kept private, it's not difficult to imagine the overwhelming sense of shock, perhaps a fleeting moment of disbelief, quickly followed by sorrow and a harrowing sense of helplessness. The sudden fragility of life, juxtaposed against the often unfeeling demands of film production, must have been a stark, sobering listen. The glitz and glamour, the high-stakes budgets, the pursuit of the perfect shot, all of it suddenly seemed utterly meaningless in the face of such a tragic, irretrievable loss. He would have been among the many trying to make sense of the senseless, offering comfort where possible, and grappling with his own grief. The bond among a film crew, often likened to a family, is forged in shared challenges and triumphs. A death on set is like losing a family member in the line of duty, leaving a collective wound that festers for years. The investigations that followed were exhaustive and relentless. Aviation authorities, local law enforcement, and occupational safety agencies descended upon the scene, meticulously sifting through the wreckage, interviewing every witness, and analyzing every scrap of data. Every wire, every hydraulic line, every maintenance log, every flight plan was scrutinized. The pilot's experience, the helicopter's service history, the weather conditions, the precise movements leading up to the crash, no stone was left unturned in the grim pursuit of answers. Was it equipment failure, human error, a confluence of unfortunate circumstances? The questions loomed large, demanding resolution not only for legal and insurance purposes, but more importantly, to provide some measure of understanding and closure for the grieving family and the traumatized crew. These inquiries are often lengthy, agonizing processes, reopening wounds with every new question and every re-examination of the horrific events. The findings, whether pointing to negligence or unavoidable accident, rarely offer full solace, serving instead as a cold, clinical dissection of a devastating human loss. The human cost of this tragedy extended far beyond the immediate victim and their family. The emotional and psychological toll on the cast and crew was immense and insidious. Many would have experienced symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder, nightmares, flashbacks, heightened anxiety, and an aversion to similar working environments or, in some cases, even the sound of helicopters. The collective trauma created a heavy cloud over the production, which inevitably halted, leaving a void where vibrant activity once buzzed. The shared experience of witnessing such horror, or even merely being on the same set when it occurred, forged a somber bond among survivors, but also cast a long shadow over their careers and personal lives. Returning to work on any project, let alone one involving similar high-risk stunts, would have been an incredibly difficult, if not impossible, prospect for some. The incident served as a stark, terrifying reminder of the thin line between daring filmmaking and grave danger, a constant, nagging whisper of vulnerability that forever alters one's perception of the job. In the wake of such a catastrophe, the industry often responds with a mixture of grief, introspection, and a renewed focus on safety. Unions representing actors, directors, and various crew members would have undoubtedly pushed for enhanced safety protocols, more stringent regulations for stunt work, and better psychological support for those affected by on-set accidents. While film production has always carried inherent risks, each major tragedy prompts a reevaluation, a tightening of standards, and a push for innovative safety measures designed to prevent future occurrences. Yet, the pressure to deliver spectacular visuals, to push the boundaries of cinematic possibility, remains a constant challenge, forever balanced against the imperative to protect human life. New guidelines for aerial coordination, more rigorous pre-flight checks, and mandatory psychological counseling became topics of urgent discussion, attempting to mend the cracks in a system that had, for a moment, tragically failed. For Tom Selleck, and indeed for everyone involved, the helicopter incident undoubtedly left an enduring psychological burden. It's a memory that doesn't simply fade away with time, but morphs, occasionally resurfacing with an unexpected force. It would have forever colored his perception of his profession, reminding him that beneath the bright lights and the grand illusions, there exists a very real, very dangerous world where human lives are at stake. The weight of knowing that a colleague perished while contributing to a film he was a part of, even if not directly his responsibility, would linger. It's the kind of experience that grounds a person, stripping away any lingering illusions of invincibility that fame might foster. It speaks to the unexpected dangers and stark realities faced behind the glamour of Hollywood, a poignant reminder that even in the pursuit of cinematic dreams, the price can sometimes be impossibly high, leaving a permanent scar on the soul of an industry and the individuals within it. But even as Tom wrestled with the external storms that had buffeted his career and public image, the contentious water rights dispute that cast a shadow over his beloved ranch, and the chilling, tragic helicopter accident on set that rattled his professional world to its core, a far more insidious and deeply personal tempest was brewing quietly within the sanctity of his own home. This wasn't a problem he could solve with legal teams, PR statements, or even the sheer force of his formidable will. This was an agonizing battle against an unseen enemy, one that threatened to dismantle the very foundation of his private life and tear at the fabric of his family. The heart-wrenching reality of his son's spiraling addiction. For a man who had meticulously constructed a life defined by privacy and self-sufficiency, this crisis presented an almost unbearable paradox. Tom Selleck, the epitome of stoic masculinity on screen, was now confronted with a situation that rendered him utterly powerless, forcing him to confront vulnerabilities he had perhaps never imagined. The early signs, as they often are with addiction, might have been subtle. easily dismissed at first as typical youthful rebelliousness or a passing phase. A missed appointment, an uncharacteristic mood swing, a fleeting glance of something off in the eyes. Perhaps there were late nights, unexplained absences, or a gradual withdrawal from activities once cherished. For any parent, these are red flags. For a parent of a public figure, the stakes are amplified by 1,000. Every perceived misstep, every lapse carries the terrifying potential for public exposure, for headlines that would strip away the very privacy they fought so hard to protect. The quiet agony of watching a child begin to drift, to lose their footing in the world, is a universal pain. But for the Sellecks, this pain was compounded by the constant, unspoken fear that their private anguish could become fodder for tabloids, turning their family's suffering into a public spectacle. The emotional toll on Tom was immeasurable. Imagine the celebrated actor who commanded respect and admiration with a single glance, reduced to a state of profound helplessness. The man who could effortlessly navigate complex scripts and demanding productions now found himself utterly unable to write a happy ending for his own son. The gnawing guilt, that insidious voice that whispers, "What did I do wrong?" or "Could I have done more?" must have been a constant companion. Was he too busy with his career? Did he provide too much or too little? Did the demands of his celebrity lifestyle inadvertently contribute to his son's struggles? These are the brutal questions that haunt any parent grappling with a child's addiction, and for Tom, they must have been particularly sharp. Every phone call became a moment of trepidation, every late-night silence a canvas for worst-case scenarios painted by a terrified mind. The fear for his son's very survival, for his future, for the kind of life he might never experience, became a heavy blanket woven from sleepless nights and anxious days. This wasn't just about sobriety. It was about the potential loss of a child, not in the physical sense, but to the suffocating grip of a disease that transforms the very essence of a person. The ripple effect of addiction extends far beyond the individual, enveloping the entire family system in its chaotic embrace. Jilly Mack, Tom's wife and his steadfast partner through decades of fame and quiet family life, became a fellow traveler on this agonizing journey. The strain on their marriage, even one as strong and enduring as theirs, must have been immense. Addiction often creates a dynamic where one parent might lean towards tough love, while the other is consumed by a desperate desire to protect, to soften the blow, to simply make the pain stop. Navigating these differing instincts while trying to maintain a united front to present an unbroken wall of parental resolve to a son spiraling out of control is a monumental challenge. Their daughter, Hannah, too, would have felt the tremors of this crisis, experiencing the confusion, the frustration, and the profound sadness that comes with watching a sibling battle such a powerful force. The family home, once a sanctuary of peace and normalcy, would have periodically transformed into a battleground of emotions: hope, despair, anger, love, all coexisting in a fragile, often volatile equilibrium. Trust, once implicit, becomes fractured, requiring constant reevaluation. Every promise made, every commitment broken, chipped away at the foundation of their relationships, leaving a family walking on eggshells, perpetually bracing for the next downturn. The decision to intervene and how to do so effectively is one of the most difficult a family can face. When do you draw the line between support and enabling? For Tom and Jilly, the path would have been fraught with agonizing choices. There would have been the desperate search for professional help, therapists, counselors, rehabilitation centers. Even with significant resources, navigating the complex world of addiction treatment is a daunting task. The financial burden, though manageable for someone of Tom's stature, pales in comparison to the emotional cost. Each enrollment in a program, each new therapist, each carefully planned intervention would have been accompanied by a fragile sense of hope, only for that hope to be repeatedly tested by the heartbreaking reality of relapse. The cycle of recovery and setback is brutal, eroding confidence and leaving parents feeling like they are perpetually starting over, each time with a little less energy, a little more fear in their hearts. The agonizing necessity of tough love, setting boundaries, refusing to rescue from self-inflicted consequences, perhaps even withdrawing financial support, goes against every protective instinct of a parent. To stand by and watch a child suffer, knowing that intervention might only exacerbate immediate pain but is crucial for long-term survival, is a unique form of torture. It's an internal conflict that rips at the soul of a father who built his public image on strength and integrity, now forced to make choices that felt inherently cruel, yet desperately necessary. For Tom Selleck, a man fiercely protective of his privacy, the struggle against his son's addiction presented an almost insurmountable dilemma. His entire adult life had been a masterclass in separating his public persona from his private reality, meticulously guarding his family from the invasive glare of Hollywood. But addiction is a disease that demands openness, connection, and often a willingness to step outside the shadows to seek help. This fundamental clash between his deeply ingrained need for privacy and the raw, unvarnished honesty required to confront addiction must have been excruciating. The constant fear that a slip, a public incident, a whispered rumor could expose his son's struggles to the voracious appetite of the media would have added an unbearable layer of pressure. He couldn't just be a father, he had to be a discreet father, constantly vigilant, always aware that one wrong move could turn their family's private pain into a sensational headline. This pressure to maintain a stoic facade in public while internally crumbling under the weight of his son's illness is a burden few can truly comprehend. Every public appearance, every interview, every interaction would have been a tightrope walk, requiring immense self-control to conceal the profound anxiety and heartbreak he was undoubtedly experiencing. The road to recovery is never a straight line. It is a winding, often perilous path marked by starts and stops, detours, and dead ends. Tom and Jilly would have learned, as countless families do, that addiction is a chronic disease, not a moral failing, and that recovery is a lifelong journey, not a destination. There would have been moments of exhilarating triumphs, small victories celebrated with fierce gratitude, a period of sobriety, a renewed interest in life, a heartfelt apology. But these would inevitably have been punctuated by devastating setbacks, by relapses that felt like a punch to the gut, plunging the family back into the abyss of despair. Each relapse would have tested their resolve, pushing them to the brink, forcing them to reevaluate strategies, to find new wells of strength they didn't know they possessed. The ongoing support required, the constant vigilance, the need to adapt and evolve alongside their son's changing needs, transformed them into unwavering advocates and tireless warriors in a battle that sometimes felt unwinnable. Through this relentless struggle, there would have been moments of profound personal growth, lessons learned about resilience, unconditional love, and the limits of control. Ultimately, Tom Selleck's anguish over his son's addiction underscores a profound truth. Wealth, fame, and success offer no immunity from life's most devastating challenges. This intensely personal struggle, hidden from the public eye for so long, resonates with millions of families around the world who navigate the same treacherous waters. It's a universal pain, transcending socioeconomic status, reminding us that at the core of every public figure lies a human being grappling with very human problems. For Tom, the man who built an empire on charm and gravitas, this battle against addiction was arguably his most formidable adversary, a conflict far more complex and emotionally draining than any script could ever capture. It offered a poignant counterpoint to his public successes, revealing the hidden battles, the sleepless nights, and the personal sacrifices involved in fighting for the life of a loved one. It was a testament to his resilience, not just as an actor, but as a father, a man forced to confront his deepest vulnerabilities in the face of a crisis that threatened to take everything. This silent, agonizing war waged within the walls of his cherished home stands as a powerful reminder that even the most seemingly invincible figures have their breaking points. and their most profound struggles often unfold far from the glaring lights of fame. The year is 2025. The television studio lights hummed with a familiar, almost comforting warmth, illuminating the stage where an icon, Tom Selleck, sat. He wasn't there to promote a new project, nor was it a celebratory retrospective of his illustrious career, though elements of both certainly infused the air. Instead, Tom found himself on the set of what was ostensibly a gentle, reflective interview, a chance for audiences to reconnect with a figure they had admired for decades. But tonight, the carefully curated public image of the confident, effortlessly charming leading man was about to fracture, revealing a vulnerability that would send ripples through Hollywood and into homes across the nation. He sat a little differently that evening. His shoulders, usually broad and commanding, seemed to carry an invisible weight. The famous mustache, still impeccably groomed, couldn't quite hide a faint tremor in his lips, a subtle clenching of his jaw that spoke volumes before he uttered a single word. The host, a seasoned veteran of late-night conversations, had steered the interview through anecdotes of classic films, nostalgic tales from the Magnum P.I. set, and light-hearted banter about his quiet life on the ranch. It was the kind of interview designed to reinforce the myth, to assure everyone that Tom Selleck was, and always would be, the picture of sturdy American integrity. But then, the conversation took a turn. Slowly, cautiously, the host broached the topic of challenges, of the unexpected turns life can take, especially for those living under the perpetual glare of public scrutiny. Tom listened, his gaze fixed somewhere beyond the cameras, perhaps seeing not the studio audience, but a lifetime of triumphs and tribulations flickering before his eyes. When he finally spoke, his voice was lower than usual, tinged with a gravelly weariness that was profoundly uncharacteristic. He began not with a grand statement, but with a quiet, almost hesitant observation about the sheer unpredictability of existence, even for someone who had meticulously planned and protected his private world. And then it came, a confession that hung heavy in the air, delivered not with a dramatic flourish, but with a raw, unvarnished honesty that left the studio in stunned silence. "You know," he started, his eyes finally meeting the camera, not with defiance, but with a profound, almost desperate plea for understanding. "I stand here today, looking back at everything, and I have to admit, it feels like I might lose it all. Everything." The words, simple yet devastating, were a gut punch. Losing everything. What did that truly mean for a man like Tom Selleck? For an actor whose face was synonymous with success, whose legacy was etched into the very fabric of American pop culture? For Tom, losing everything wasn't merely a hyperbolic expression of fleeting distress. It was a tangible, terrifying prospect that loomed over him, threatening to dismantle the very foundations of his life. On one hand, there was the specter of financial ruin, the massive legal costs from the protracted water theft scandal that had plagued him for years, accusations of diverting water during a historic drought to maintain his avocado farm had taken an unimaginable toll. Beyond the hefty fines and settlements, the sheer financial bleed a legal representation had been monumental, chipping away at the wealth he had painstakingly accumulated over decades. There were whispers of ill-advised investments, the fluctuating demands of maintaining a sprawling ranch, and the ever-present, escalating burden of supporting his son Kevin through the relentless and costly battle against addiction. Addiction, a monster that devoured not only souls, but bank accounts, demanding endless resources for rehabilitation, therapy, and support. The lavish lifestyle that once seemed inherent to his celebrity, the beautiful home, the sprawling property, now felt like a gilded cage, each amenity a drain, each comfort a liability. The fear was real. Could the once unassailable fortune of Tom Selleck actually dwindle to nothing, leaving him exposed in his twilight years? But beyond the stark reality of financial erosion, losing everything also spoke to a deeper, more devastating kind of loss, the erosion of his personal legacy. Tom Selleck wasn't just an actor, he was an icon, a symbol of masculinity, integrity, and the American dream. He represented a bygone era of Hollywood charm and quiet strength. The water theft scandal had tarnished that image, painting him not as a benevolent rancher, but as a privileged celebrity out of touch with environmental realities. The lingering shadow of the helicopter crash on set, a tragic event that, while not directly his fault, undeniably stained the memory of a past production, adding a somber note to his professional history. Now, with the public acknowledgement of his son's addiction struggles, a deeply private family battle was laid bare, exposing another chink in the armor of the seemingly perfect life. The fear was that his legacy would be rewritten, not as the charming Magnum P.I. or the stoic Commissioner Reagan, but as the man entangled in scandals, the father who watched his son spiral, the icon whose golden sheen had faded. What good was fame, he must have wondered, if it couldn't protect his name, his family, or his peace of mind? Perhaps most profoundly, losing everything signified a profound loss of control over his own life. Tom Selleck was a man who had always prided himself on his privacy, his ability to manage his career and personal life with a steady hand. His secret wedding in 1987, marrying Jilly Mack under a fake name, was the ultimate testament to this desire for autonomy, a desperate attempt to carve out a sliver of normalcy amidst the chaos of superstardom. Yet life, in its brutal indifference, had consistently challenged that control. The water scandal was a public legal battle he couldn't simply make disappear. The helicopter death was a tragic accident beyond anyone's direct power to prevent, and his son's addiction was perhaps the cruelest blow of all, a parental nightmare of watching someone you love battle an internal demon you are utterly powerless to vanquish, no matter how much love, money, or influence you pour into the fight. The admission on live television wasn't just about financial or reputational ruin. It was the confession of a man who felt his grip loosening, watching helplessly as the carefully constructed edifice of his life began to crumble, brick by agonizing brick. It was the crushing weight of acknowledging that some battles, even for an American hero, cannot be won through strength or will alone. This climactic confession, delivered with such raw vulnerability in 2025, wasn't an isolated incident. It was the culmination, the terrifying sum total of decades of challenges. The initial desire for privacy, evidenced by that rushed secret wedding, had been a prescient foreboding of the very public battles he would later face. The water scandal had ripped a hole in his carefully cultivated image of the grounded, environmentally conscious rancher, dragging him through the mud of public opinion and legal fees. The haunting memory of the helicopter death on set, a stark reminder of life's fragility and unpredictability, undoubtedly contributed to a deeper sense of existential dread. But it was the protracted, heart-wrenching struggle with his son's addiction that had perhaps taken the most profound toll. It was a relentless, personal war fought in the shadows, far from the cameras, yet its emotional and financial strain seeped into every aspect of his existence, ultimately bringing him to this moment of desperate candor. The public reaction to Tom Selleck's admission was immediate and widespread. Social media exploded with a mixture of shock, profound empathy, and disbelief. Headlines blared, not with salacious gossip, but with genuine concern for a beloved figure. Fans, who had grown up watching him embody strength and steadfastness, were forced to confront the stark reality that even their heroes were susceptible to the same devastating trials as ordinary people. For many, it humanized him in a way decades of carefully managed public appearances never could. He was no longer just the charming actor. He was a father, a husband, a man grappling with overwhelming challenges, stripped bare of his celebrity facade. On a personal level, the confession must have been an immense release, an unburdening of secrets and fears he had carried for far too long. Yet, it also deepened his exposure, forcing him to navigate this new, unfiltered public scrutiny at an incredibly vulnerable time. Tom Selleck, the epitome of the private star, had laid his deepest fears bare for the world to see. It was a powerful, if painful, resolution to the narrative of his trials, demonstrating that even for those who seemingly had it all, life's relentless current could pull them towards an unforeseen precipice. His admission wasn't an ending, but a raw, unsettling acknowledgement that the battle was far from over, and that even a man of his stature could, in the end, find himself teetering on the brink of losing everything. As we close the book on Tom Selleck's extraordinary, often tumultuous journey, what lingers isn't just a collection of headlines or dramatic events, but a profound reflection on the enduring human spirit. We've witnessed the quiet secrecy of a wedding under a false name, a desperate dash for a forgotten license, and the initial bliss quickly overshadowed by life's relentless demands. Then came the echoing shockwaves of a water theft accusation, casting a pall over his public image. The harrowing shadow of tragedy on set, a stark reminder of life's fragile grip, added another layer of unimaginable pain. And most poignantly, the deeply personal torment of a son battling addiction, a struggle that can shatter any family, regardless of fame or fortune. Finally, we arrived at that raw, vulnerable confession on live television, a moment where the man who had it all admitted the terrifying prospect of losing everything. This wasn't merely a series of unfortunate events, it was a relentless erosion of a carefully constructed life, a public dismantling of a private world. Selleck's narrative starkly illustrates the paradox of celebrity. The immense privilege often comes hand in hand with an equally immense burden. The public persona, meticulously crafted and adored, often masks a private world grappling with universal human frailty, pain, and the relentless quest for normalcy amidst the extraordinary. His story underscores the constant battle for privacy in an ever-scrutinizing world, and how even immense success offers no shield from deeply personal struggles. Yet, what emerges from this crucible of challenges isn't just a tale of woe, but a profound testament to the human spirit's unwavering capacity for resilience. Despite the scandals, the personal heartbreaks, and the very real threat of financial ruin, Tom Selleck has, in his way, kept going. He's adapted, confronted his demons, both public and private, and, in his admission of potential loss, demonstrated a raw, relatable honesty that cuts through the veneer of Hollywood glamour. His journey is a powerful reminder that the foundations of one's life, no matter how solid they appear, can crumble. But in that crumbling, there lies an opportunity for adaptation, for a recalibration of values, and for a quiet, often difficult search for redemption. His story reminds us that even for those who seemingly have it all, life remains an unpredictable tapestry of triumphs and trials. It's a powerful echo of our own battles, a testament to the fact that strength isn't just found in unwavering success, but in the courage to face collapse, to adapt, to endure, and ultimately to keep seeking a way forward even when the very foundations of our lives seem utterly, irrevocably shattered. Tom Selleck, the complex man behind the iconic mustache, offers us not just a celebrity exposé, but a deeply human lesson in enduring.